The next morning, Maya arrived at school 30 minutes early, as was her habit. She liked the quiet time before the chaos began, when she could prepare mentally for the day ahead. But as she walked down the hallway toward her classroom, she noticed something was off. Her classroom door was slightly ajar, even though she distinctly remembered locking it the night before. Maya approached carefully, her senses heightened from years of martial arts training that had taught her to always be aware of her surroundings. Inside her classroom, she found her neat arrangement of desks pushed into random clusters. The motivational posters she had carefully hung were now crooked, and someone had used a black marker to draw mustaches and horns on the faces in her photographs of famous authors. Her heart sank as she saw the word, "Quit," scrawled across her whiteboard in large, messy letters. Maya took a deep breath, centering herself the way her karate instructor had taught her years ago. She spent the next 20 minutes quietly putting everything back in order, erasing the graffiti and straightening the posters. She didn't report the incident to the administration. She knew exactly who was responsible, and she also knew that running to the principal's office would only make things worse. During her first period class, Maya noticed Blake Thompson walking slowly past her classroom windows, peering in with a smug grin on his face. He wasn't supposed to be in this hallway during first period, but he was clearly checking to see her reaction to his handiwork. Maya continued teaching as if nothing had happened, but she made mental notes. These boys were escalating their behavior, testing to see how far they could push her before she broke. The harassment continued throughout the week in small, calculated ways. Rico Martinez started showing up during her lunch break, standing just outside her classroom door and staring at her while she ate. He never said anything threatening, never did anything that could get him in serious trouble, but his presence was clearly meant to make her uncomfortable. Kyle Adams took a different approach. He began spreading rumors about Maya among the younger students, telling them she was mean and unfair, that she gave detention for no reason, and that she didn't really care about students from their neighborhood. Maya noticed some of her 7th graders starting to look at her with suspicion, their previously warm interactions becoming cooler and more guarded. The 3 boys were smart about their campaign of intimidation. They never did anything in front of witnesses that could be clearly documented as harassment. They stayed just within the boundaries of what could be explained away as coincidence or typical teenage behavior. On Thursday afternoon, Maya stayed late to tutor 2 students who were struggling with their reading assignments. She enjoyed these one-on-one sessions, watching kids' faces light up when concepts finally clicked. It reminded her why she had chosen this profession despite all its challenges. As she walked to her car in the near-empty parking lot around 6 o'clock, she heard footsteps behind her. Maya didn't turn around immediately, but her martial arts training kicked in automatically. She listened carefully to the rhythm of the steps, noting that there were multiple people following her. "Hey, Ms. Rodriguez," Blake's voice called out from behind her. "Walking alone in a dark parking lot isn't very safe." Maya reached her car and turned around calmly. Blake, Rico, and Kyle were standing about 10 feet away, positioned in a loose semicircle that blocked her most direct path. "Back to the school building." "Thank you for your concern," Maya replied evenly, unlocking her car door but not getting in yet. "I'm perfectly fine." "Are you sure about that?" Rico asked, stepping slightly closer. "Because we've been hearing that you don't really understand how things work around here." Maya's training had taught her to recognize the signs of escalating aggression. The boys were testing boundaries, seeing how she would react to being cornered. Their body language was becoming more aggressive, their voices taking on threatening undertones. "I understand more than you think," Maya said quietly. "And right now, I understand that it's time for me to go home and for you 3 to do the same." Kyle laughed, but it wasn't a friendly sound. "Maybe you should go home and not come back. This school isn't the right place for someone like you." For the first time since the harassment began, Maya felt a flash of real anger. These boys were trying to drive her away from a job she loved, from students who needed her. They were using fear and intimidation to get their way, probably the same tactics they used on other teachers and students. But Maya's anger was controlled, channeled through years of discipline training. She had learned long ago that emotional reactions were exactly what bullies wanted. Instead, she looked each boy directly in the eyes, one by one. "I'm not going anywhere," she said with quiet certainty. "This is my school now, and these are my students. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to speak with Principal Johnson about it." Blake's face darkened. He was used to teachers backing down, showing fear, maybe even crying. Maya's calm confidence was not the reaction he expected. "We'll see about that," he muttered, and the three boys walked away. But not before Rico made a point of walking very close to Maya's car, close enough that she had to step back. Maya got into her car and sat for a moment, her hands resting on the steering wheel. Her heart was beating fast, but not from fear. She felt the same focused energy she experienced before karate competitions, when she knew she was facing a serious challenge that would require all her skills and training. The harassment escalated over the following days. Maya would find threatening notes slipped under her classroom door, always unsigned and never containing anything specific enough to constitute a real threat. Her car tires were never slashed, but she would find nails and screws scattered around her parking space. Her classroom supplies would go missing, never valuable enough to report as theft, but enough to disrupt her teaching. The three boys began timing their movements to coincide with hers. When she walked to the copy machine, one of them would suddenly appear in the hallway. When she headed to the faculty restroom, she would find Rico or Kyle already hanging around nearby. They never approached her directly during school hours, but their constant presence was a psychological pressure designed to wear her down. Other teachers began to notice. Mrs. Peterson pulled Maya aside again during lunch. "How are you holding up?" she asked with genuine concern. "I know those boys have been giving you trouble." Maya appreciated the support, but she also noticed that Mrs. Peterson looked around nervously before speaking, as if she was afraid of being overheard. "I'm managing," Maya replied. "Have they done this to other teachers?" Mrs. Peterson nodded sadly. "The same pattern every time. It starts small, then gets worse until the teacher either fights back and gets in trouble for confronting students, or gives up and requests a transfer. They're very good at staying just under the radar of serious consequences." That evening, Maya stopped by the community center where she had first learned karate as a teenager. Her old instructor, Mr. Chen, now in his 70s, was still teaching classes to young students. "Maya," he greeted her warmly. "It's been too long since you visited." They talked about her new job, and Maya found herself sharing some of her challenges without going into specific details about the harassment. "Remember what I taught you about the difference between strength and violence," Mr. Chen said thoughtfully. "True strength often means enduring pressure without breaking, but it also means knowing when endurance becomes enabling." Maya nodded, understanding his deeper meaning. She had been patient, professional, and non-confrontational. But these boys were interpreting her restraint as weakness, and their behavior was getting worse. As she drove home that night, Maya realized that the situation was approaching a crossroads. The three boys were becoming bolder, more aggressive. Soon, they would either get bored and move on to easier targets, or they would push things to a level where something would have to give. Maya hoped it would be the former, but her instincts told her to prepare for the latter. 2 weeks into October, Maya thought she had seen the worst of what Blake, Rico, and Kyle could dish out. She was wrong. The breaking point began on a Tuesday evening during parent-teacher conferences. Maya had stayed late to meet with families, discussing their children's progress and answering questions about upcoming assignments. These meetings were one of her favorite parts of teaching. Seeing parents who cared deeply about their kids' education, despite working multiple jobs and facing their own challenges, reminded her why she had chosen this profession. Mrs. Garcia, the mother of one of her brightest students, had just left after a wonderful conversation about her daughter's potential for advanced placement classes next year. Maya was packing up her materials, feeling genuinely happy about the evening's success, when she heard the familiar sound of heavy footsteps in the hallway. The school was mostly empty now. The janitors had finished cleaning the main areas and moved to the gym. Most teachers had gone home hours ago. Maya glanced at her watch. It was almost 8 o'clock. Blake appeared in her doorway first, followed by Rico and Kyle. But something was different this time. Their usual cocky attitudes had been replaced by something darker, more focused. Maya's martial arts training immediately picked up on the change in their energy. "Working late again, Ms. Rodriguez?" Blake asked, but his tone wasn't the mocking one she had grown accustomed to. This was harder, more menacing. Maya continued packing her bag, keeping her movements calm and natural while her mind quickly assessed the situation. 3 teenage boys, each outweighing her by at least 50 pounds. Empty school building, no witnesses. Her car was in the far corner of the parking lot. "Just finishing up," she replied evenly. "You boys should head home, it's getting late." Rico stepped into the classroom, blocking her direct path to the door. "We need to talk to you about something." Maya's training kicked in automatically. She positioned herself so she could see all 3 boys while keeping the desk between herself and them. Her breathing remained steady, but every muscle in her body was quietly preparing. "What would you like to talk about?" she asked, buying time while she evaluated possible escape routes. Kyle, who usually stayed in the background, spoke up with unusual boldness. "We're tired of you acting like you belong here. This isn't your school." "Actually, it is," Maya replied, calmly. "I work here, I teach here, I belong here just as much as anyone else." Blake's face darkened. "You think you're better than us because you went to some fancy college. You think you can come here and change everything." Maya could see the situation escalating beyond anything they had tried before. These weren't random acts of harassment anymore. This felt planned, coordinated. The 3 boys had probably been building up their courage all day, maybe all week, working themselves up to this confrontation. "I don't think I'm better than anyone," Maya said honestly. "I think we all have value, including the 3 of you. But right now you're making choices that could get you into serious trouble." Rico laughed, but it was an ugly sound. "What are you going to do? Run to the principal like the other teachers? We already know you won't do that." He was right, and they all knew it. Maya had deliberately avoided reporting their harassment because she knew it would only make things worse. But now she was beginning to realize that her restraint had been interpreted as weakness. "Maybe we should help you pack up," Kyle said, reaching toward the papers on her desk. "Don't touch my things," Maya said firmly, her voice carrying a warning that made Kyle hesitate. Blake stepped closer. "Or what? You'll give us detention? You'll call our parents? We're not scared of you." Maya felt the familiar calm that came over her before sparring matches. But this was different. This wasn't a controlled environment with rules and referees. This was 3 aggressive teenagers who had worked themselves up to a dangerous level of hostility. "You should be," she said quietly, and something in her tone made all 3 boys pause. For 15 years, Maya had practiced martial arts with discipline and respect. Her instructors had drilled into her that violence was always the last resort. That true strength came from avoiding conflicts, not starting them. But they had also taught her that when someone threatened her safety, she had every right to defend herself. "What did you just say?" Blake demanded, his voice rising. Maya stood up slowly, her movement fluid and controlled. "I said you should be scared. Not of me, but of the consequences of your actions. You're standing in my classroom, after school, hours trying to intimidate me. This isn't a game anymore." Rico stepped closer to the desk. "Maybe you need to learn some respect." "I have plenty of respect," Maya replied. "For my students, for education, for this school. But I don't have respect for bullies who think they can intimidate people to get their way." The word bullies hit them like a slap. Blake's face flushed red with anger. "Nobody calls us bullies," he shouted, slamming his hand down on Maya's desk, hard enough to make her coffee mug jump. Maya didn't flinch. Years of training had taught her to stay calm under pressure, to think clearly when others were losing control. "Then stop acting like bullies," she said simply. Kyle grabbed a stack of her papers and threw them in the air, letting them scatter across the floor. "Clean that up." "No," Maya said firmly. Rico moved around the desk, getting closer to her. "You'll do what we tell you to do." Maya's training was screaming warnings at her now. The boys had crossed from verbal intimidation to physical aggression. They were escalating rapidly, feeding off each other's energy. In a few seconds, someone was going to do something that couldn't be taken back. "Step away from me," Maya said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who was absolutely serious. Instead, Rico reached out and grabbed her arm. "You don't give us orders." The moment Rico's hand touched her, 15 years of martial arts training took over. Maya's body moved before her conscious mind could even process what was happening. She twisted her arm in a smooth motion that broke Rico's grip while simultaneously stepping back to create distance. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice deadly, calm. But Rico, embarrassed by how easily she had escaped his grasp, lunged forward more aggressively. Blake and Kyle, seeing their friend being defied, moved to flank her on both sides. Maya found herself in the position she had hoped never to face as a teacher. 3 hostile teenagers were surrounding her in an empty school building, and they had just crossed the line from harassment to physical assault. Her years of training told her that the situation had moved beyond de-escalation. She assumed a defensive stance, balanced and ready, her hands raised in a non-threatening but prepared position. "Last warning," she said quietly. "Walk away now, and we can all pretend this never happened." Blake laughed, misreading her defensive posture as fear. "Look at her, she thinks she's some kind of fighter." "I don't think anything," Maya replied. "I know exactly what I am." Rico made the mistake of rushing forward first, probably expecting Maya to cower or try to run. Instead, he found himself facing someone who had spent 15 years learning how to handle exactly this type of situation. Maya's response was swift, controlled, and precise. Using Rico's own momentum against him, she executed a perfect hip throw that sent him tumbling to the floor in a controlled manner that looked devastating but was actually designed to minimize injury. Blake and Kyle stared in shock as their friend picked himself up off the floor, more embarrassed than hurt. "What just happened?" Kyle whispered. Maya remained in her defensive stance, calm and ready. "I defended myself, and I'll do it again if I have to." For the first time since this whole ordeal began, she saw uncertainty in their eyes. The 3 boys who had been terrorizing her for weeks suddenly realized they had badly misjudged their target. The real confrontation was just beginning. Rico scrambled to his feet, his face burning with embarrassment and anger. Being thrown to the ground by his teacher in front of his friends was not how he had imagined this confrontation going. The confident smirk he had worn for weeks was completely gone, replaced by confused rage. "How did you do that?" he demanded, brushing dust off his jeans. Maya remained in her defensive stance, her breathing calm and controlled. 15 years of training," she said simply. "I tried to avoid this, but you wouldn't listen." Blake stepped forward, his fists clenched. He was the biggest of the 3, used to intimidating people with his size alone. The idea that this teacher, who barely came up to his shoulder, had just taken down his friend was impossible for him to accept. "That was lucky," Blake growled. "But you won't get lucky twice." Maya's martial arts instructor had always taught her that the most dangerous moment in any confrontation was right after you demonstrated your ability to defend yourself. That's when attackers either backed down or escalated to serious violence. Looking at Blake's face, Maya could see he was choosing escalation. "Blake, don't do this," she said, her voice carrying both authority and genuine concern. "You're already in enough trouble. If you assault a teacher, you're looking at criminal charges, not just school discipline." But Blake was beyond reasoning. His reputation among his friends was on the line. For 2 years, he had been the toughest kid in school, the one other students feared and other bullies respected. He couldn't let a teacher make him look weak. Blake charged forward with the clumsy aggression of someone who had never faced a trained opponent. Maya sidestepped his rush with fluid grace, using his own momentum to guide him past her. As he stumbled forward off balance, Maya placed a gentle but firm hand on his back and helped him continue his journey to the floor. Blake landed hard but safely, more stunned than injured. Maya had controlled the takedown perfectly, ensuring he wouldn't get seriously hurt while still demonstrating her complete mastery of the situation. Kyle stared at his 2 friends on the ground, his mouth hanging open. "What are you?" he whispered. "I'm a teacher," Maya replied calmly. "But I'm also a black belt in karate. I've been training since I was 13 years old. Rico got up again, but this time more cautiously. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by a wary respect that hadn't been there before. Why didn't you tell anyone? Maya relaxed slightly, sensing that the immediate physical danger was passing. Because it's not relevant to teaching English. I came here to educate students, not to fight them. Blake pulled himself to his feet, his face red with embarrassment and confusion. For the first time in years, someone had made him feel small and helpless. But instead of the anger he expected to feel, something else was stirring inside him. Something that felt almost like relief. You could have hurt us, he said quietly, the aggression draining out of his voice. Yes, Maya acknowledged honestly. I could have. But that's not what martial arts taught me to do. My instructor always said that real strength is knowing when not to use your power. Kyle, who had been hanging back during the physical confrontation, stepped forward cautiously. So why did you use it now? Maya looked at each of the three boys carefully. For the first time in weeks, they weren't trying to intimidate her. They were actually listening, actually engaging with her as human beings rather than as targets. Because you crossed a line, she explained. Harassment and intimidation are serious problems, but when Rico grabbed my arm, it became assault. I had every right to defend myself. Rico looked down at his hands, as if seeing them for the first time. I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to really hurt you. Intent doesn't matter, Maya said gently but firmly. When you put your hands on someone without permission, especially in a threatening way, it's assault. If I had called the police right now, all three of you could be arrested. The weight of that statement settled over the boys like a cold blanket. They had been so focused on their game of intimidation that they hadn't considered the real world consequences of their actions. Blake sat down heavily in one of the student desks, looking suddenly very young and very tired. We messed up, didn't we? Maya nodded. Yes, you did. But the question now is what you're going to do about it. For several minutes, the classroom was quiet except for the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. Maya could see the boys, processing what had just happened, their worldview shifting as they realized they had badly misjudged both her and the situation. Kyle finally broke the silence. Are you going to report us? Maya considered the question carefully. She had every right to report them. They had harassed her for weeks, vandalized her classroom, and tonight had attempted to physically intimidate and assault her. Any administrator would support her completely. But looking at their faces now, Maya saw something different than the cocky bullies who had been terrorizing her. She saw three confused teenagers who had just learned a very hard lesson about consequences. That depends, she said finally. On what? Rico asked nervously. Maya pulled out a chair and sat down, shifting from defensive posture to teaching mode. On whether you're ready to have an honest conversation about what's been happening here. Blake looked up at her with genuine curiosity. What do you mean? I want to understand why three smart kids decided to spend their time and energy trying to drive away a teacher who came here to help them. The boys exchanged glances, their earlier bravado completely gone. Rico was the first to speak. We didn't think you'd last anyway, he admitted. Teachers come and go here all the time. We figured you'd leave like the others, so why not speed up the process? And you enjoyed making me miserable? Maya asked, not accusingly, but with genuine curiosity. Kyle shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't about making you miserable, it was about, I don't know, proving something, I guess. Proving what? Blake struggled to find the words. That we have power too. That just because we're kids doesn't mean adults can do whatever they want to us. Maya felt a flash of understanding. Has someone been using their power against you? The question hung in the air for a long moment. Finally, Rico nodded slowly. Teachers, principals, cops, social workers, he said bitterly. Everyone's always telling us what to do, what we can't do, where we don't belong. We got tired of being pushed around. So you decided to push back? Maya said, beginning to see the full picture. Yeah, Blake admitted. But we picked the wrong targets, didn't we? Maya leaned forward. Rico, Kyle, Blake, can I tell you something about power? They nodded, genuinely listening for the first time since she had known them. Real power isn't about making other people afraid of you. Real power is about having control over yourself. When I started karate, I thought it was going to teach me how to fight. But what it really taught me was how not to fight. Kyle frowned. What do you mean? I mean that the strongest people are the ones who can stay calm when everyone else is losing control. The ones who can choose their response instead of just reacting. The ones who use their strength to protect people instead of hurting them. Maya stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the empty parking lot where this all might have ended very differently. You three have been trying to prove your power by tearing others down, but real power comes from building others up, from becoming the kind of people others can count on. She turned back to face them. The question is, are you ready to learn what real strength looks like? The three boys sat in stunned silence, staring at Maya as her words sank in. For the first time in months, maybe years, an adult was talking to them like they mattered, like they had the potential to be something more than troublemakers. Blake was the first to respond. You really think we could learn that kind of strength? Maya smiled, the first genuine smile she had shared with these boys since meeting them. I know you can. But it starts with making a choice, right here, right now. Rico leaned forward in his chair. What kind of choice? You can keep going down the path you're on using fear and intimidation to get what you want. Eventually, that path leads to serious trouble, maybe prison. Or you can choose to become the kind of men who use their strength to help others. Kyle, who had been quiet throughout most of the conversation, suddenly spoke up. Nobody ever told us we could be strong in a good way before. Maya felt her heart break a little at those words. These boys had been so focused on proving their toughness that they had never considered they might have other valuable qualities. Well, I'm telling you now, she said firmly. But words are easy. Are you ready to prove it through actions? The boys looked at each other uncertainly. Blake finally asked, what would we have to do? Maya walked back to her desk and pulled out a piece of paper. First, you're going to help me clean up this mess you made. Then, you're going to write letters of apology, not just to me, but to every teacher and student you've intimidated this year. Rico winced. That's going to be a lot of letters. Yes, it is, Maya agreed. And that should tell you something about how many people you've hurt. The boys began picking up the scattered papers without being asked twice. As they worked, Maya continued outlining her plan. Second, you're going to start coming to my classroom every day after school. Not for detention, but for what I'm calling life skills training. Kyle looked up from the papers he was collecting. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're going to learn about real strength, real leadership, and real responsibility. Some days we'll talk, some days you'll help tutor younger students, and some days, if you're interested, I might teach you some basic martial arts. Blake's eyes lit up for the first time. You'd really teach us karate? Maya nodded. But only if you prove you can handle the responsibility. Martial arts isn't about fighting. It's about discipline, respect, and self-control. If you can't demonstrate those qualities in your regular life, you're not ready to learn physical techniques. Over the following weeks, Maya watched 3 bullies slowly transform into 3 young men. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight. There were setbacks, arguments, and moments when she wondered if she was wasting her time. Blake struggled the most with anger management. He had used intimidation for so long that he didn't know how else to handle frustration. But Maya worked with him patiently, teaching him breathing techniques and helping him find better ways to express his feelings. Rico had the hardest time with the apology letters. His pride was wounded, and admitting he had been wrong felt like weakness to him. Maya spent hours explaining that real strength meant taking responsibility for your mistakes, not pretending they never happened. Kyle surprised everyone by becoming the most enthusiastic student. He threw himself into tutoring younger kids with a passion that amazed the other teachers. It turned out that underneath his tough exterior was someone who genuinely wanted to help others succeed. The transformation didn't go unnoticed by the rest of the school. Students who had been terrified of the 3 boys began to see them differently. Teachers who had dreaded seeing them in the hallways started greeting them with cautious smiles. Principal Johnson called Maya into his office 6 weeks after the confrontation. "I don't know what you did," he said, shaking his head in amazement. "But those 3 boys are like completely different people. Their grades are improving, they're helping other students, and I haven't had a single complaint about their behavior." Maya smiled. "I just showed them that they had choices they didn't know about. Other teachers are asking how you did it. Mrs. Peterson told me she saw Blake helping a 6th grader with his math homework yesterday. A month ago, that same 6th grader was afraid to walk past Blake in the hallways. The real test came when a new group of troublemakers started picking on some of Maya's 7th grade students. Instead of ignoring it or joining in like they might have done before, Blake, Rico, and Kyle stepped up to protect the younger kids. Maya watched from her classroom window as Blake calmly but firmly told the bullies to leave the 7th graders alone. When the bullies tried to challenge him, Rico and Kyle flanked their friend, presenting a united front that made the troublemakers think twice about escalating the situation. "We don't pick on younger kids here," Blake said clearly. "Find something better to do with your time." The bullies, faced with 3 older students who were clearly united and confident, decided to back down and walk away. That afternoon, Blake came to Maya's classroom with a huge grin on his face. "Did you see what happened at lunch?" he asked, excitedly. Maya nodded. "I saw. How did it feel?" Blake paused, thinking carefully about his answer. "It felt better than being scary ever did. Like, way better." Rico and Kyle arrived a few minutes later, equally excited about their successful intervention. "The 7th graders actually thanked us," Kyle said, still sounding amazed. "When's the last time anyone thanked us for anything?" As the school year progressed, the 3 boys became unofficial mentors to younger students. They started a peer mediation program, helping resolve conflicts between students without violence or intimidation. Rico discovered he had a talent for helping kids who struggled with reading, while Kyle became the go-to person for students dealing with bullying. Blake asked Maya to help him start a martial arts club at school. Under her guidance, he learned to teach basic self-defense techniques while emphasizing the discipline and respect that came with the training. "Remember," Maya would tell the club members, "the goal is never to hurt someone. The goal is to be so confident and centered that you don't need to prove anything to anyone." By the end of the school year, the 3 former bullies had become 3 of the most respected students at Lincoln Middle School. Their transformation was so complete that new teachers didn't believe the stories about their previous behavior. At the year-end awards ceremony, all 3 boys received recognition for their positive contributions to the school community. As Maya watched them walk across the stage to accept their certificates, she felt a deep sense of satisfaction that had nothing to do with martial arts and everything to do with teaching. After the ceremony, Rico approached her with tears in his eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said quietly, "you saved my life. If you hadn't shown us a different way to be strong, I would have ended up in jail or worse." Blake and Kyle nodded in agreement. "You didn't just teach us karate," Blake added. "You taught us how to be men." Maya felt her own eyes filling with tears. "You taught yourselves. I just showed you that you had the choice." As she drove home that evening, Maya reflected on the most challenging and rewarding year of her teaching career. She had come to Lincoln Middle School hoping to make a difference in students' lives. What she hadn't expected was how much they would change her life in return. The 3 boys who had once tried to drive her away had become 3 of her greatest success stories, proof that even the most troubled students could transform their lives when someone believed in their potential and showed them a better path forward. Sometimes, Maya realized, the greatest victories come not from defeating your opponents, but from helping them discover the strength they never knew they had. The moving truck pulled away from the driveway, leaving behind a cloud of dust and the smell of diesel in the warm Georgia air. Maya stood on the front porch of their new house, watching the truck disappear around the corner. She took a deep breath and tried to shake off the butterflies in her stomach. This was their 4th move in 6 years, but somehow this one felt different. Maybe it was because her dad wasn't here to help them settle in this time. Her mom, Linda, appeared beside her carrying a box labeled Maya's Room in her neat handwriting. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you unpacked. School starts tomorrow, and I know you want to make a good first impression." Maya nodded and followed her mother inside. The house was nice enough, bigger than their last place in Virginia. It had a front yard with an old oak tree and a back porch that overlooked a small creek, but it still didn't feel like home. Nothing ever felt like home when her father wasn't there. Commander David Rivera had been deployed to the Middle East for 3 months now, and Maya missed him terribly. He was the one who always made their moves feel like adventures instead of disruptions. He would explore the new town with her, find the best pizza place, and help her figure out which activities to join at each new school. Without him, everything felt uncertain. That evening, Maya sat in her half-unpacked room, staring at a framed photo of her and her dad from last year's Navy ball. He looked so proud in his dress uniform, and she remembered how special she felt that night dancing with him in her blue dress. She picked up her phone and sent him a quick message. "Starting school tomorrow. Wish you were here." The response came back within minutes. "You've got this, kiddo. Remember what I taught you about walking into new situations. Head up, shoulders back, and let your character speak for itself. I'm proud of you no matter what." "Love you." Maya smiled for the first time that day. Her dad always knew exactly what to say. The next morning, Maya spent extra time getting ready. She chose a simple but stylish outfit, did her hair in loose waves, and made sure her backpack was organized. She had learned from previous moves that first impressions mattered, especially when you were the new kid. Riverside High School was bigger than she expected. The red brick building stretched across what felt like an entire city block, with multiple wings and a large courtyard in the center. Students were already gathering in small groups, laughing and catching up after the summer break. Maya felt that familiar knot in her stomach as she watched them. Everyone seemed to know exactly where they belonged. The main office was busy with other new students and parents handling registration paperwork. Maya waited in line, observing the controlled chaos around her. She noticed how the staff moved, with practiced efficiency, clearly used to handling the beginning-of-year rush. Maya Rivera. A friendly voice called her name. She turned to see a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. "I'm Mrs. Thompson, the student counselor. I'll be helping you get oriented today." Mrs. Thompson walked Maya through her class schedule, pointing out the locations of each classroom on a map of the school. "You've got a good mix of classes," she said. "Advanced English, chemistry, calculus, and history. Your grades from your previous school are impressive. Have you thought about joining any extracurricular activities?" Maya shrugged. "I usually do some kind of sport. I was on the gymnastics team at my last school." "Well, we don't have gymnastics here, but we do have a very active cheerleading program. They're always looking for girls with tumbling skills. The coach, Ms. Patterson, is excellent. She's built quite a reputation for the team over the past few years." The morning classes went better than Maya had expected. Her teachers seemed nice enough, and a few students had been friendly during group activities. By lunchtime, she was feeling cautiously optimistic about her new school. The cafeteria was massive and loud, filled with the chatter of hundreds of teenagers. Maya grabbed a sandwich and looked around for somewhere to sit. Most tables were already full with established friend groups. She spotted an empty table near the windows and headed over. As she was eating and scrolling through her phone, she noticed a commotion near the center of the cafeteria. A group of girls in matching cheerleading practice clothes had entered, and it was clear they commanded attention. Other students moved aside to let them pass, and conversations seemed to quiet as they walked by. The girl leading the group was tall and blonde, with the kind of confidence that came from years of being the center of attention. She carried herself like she owned the place, and Maya could see why. Even from across the room, it was obvious she was used to being in charge. "That's Jessica Walsh," said a voice beside her. Maya turned to see a girl with curly red hair and freckles sitting down at her table. "I'm Katie, by the way. You're new, right?" "Yeah, I'm Maya. Just moved here from Virginia." Katie nodded toward the group of cheerleaders. "Jessica's been the squad captain since sophomore year. Her dad owns the biggest car dealership in town, and her mom runs the PTA. She's basically cheerleading royalty around here." Maya watched as Jessica and her friends claimed a large table in the center of the cafeteria. Other students seemed to orbit around them, hoping for acknowledgement or invitation to join their conversation. "Are they good?" Maya asked. "The cheerleaders, they're decent. They won regionals last year, but they've been doing the same routines for ages. Coach Patterson keeps talking about wanting to add more difficulty to their tumbling passes, but most of the girls can't handle advanced moves." Maya found herself studying the group more carefully. She had been doing gymnastics since she was 6, and cheerleading since middle school. She could tell just from watching them walk that most of these girls were more about the social aspect than the athletic challenge. After lunch, Maya was walking to her next class when she heard her name called over the intercom. "Maya Rivera, please report to the gym office." She found the gym easily enough and knocked on the office door. A woman in her 40s with short brown hair and an athletic build opened it. "Maya, I'm Coach Patterson. Mrs. Thompson mentioned you might be interested in cheerleading. I was hoping we could chat for a few minutes." Coach Patterson's office was covered with photos of cheerleading teams from previous years, competition ribbons, and motivational posters. She gestured for Maya to sit down across from her desk. "Tell me about your experience," Coach Patterson said, leaning forward with genuine interest. Maya explained her background in gymnastics and cheerleading, mentioning some of the skills she had learned and competitions she had participated in. Coach Patterson's eyes lit up as Maya described her tumbling abilities. "Would you be willing to show me a few things? We have practice after school today, and I'd love to see what you can do." Maya felt a flutter of excitement. This was exactly what she had been hoping for. "I'd love to." "Great. Practice starts at 3:30. Wear something you can move in, and we'll see what you've got." The rest of the school day passed quickly. Maya found herself looking forward to practice in a way she hadn't expected. Maybe this move wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe she had found her place at Riverside High. As she walked to her locker after her last class, Maya felt more optimistic than she had in weeks. She pulled out her phone and sent her dad another message. "Trying out for cheerleading today. Feeling good about this place." His response came back immediately. "That's my girl. Show them what a Rivera can do." Maya smiled and headed toward the gym, ready to prove herself once again.